Last couple of years, it is mandatory to wear seat belts. They're just tucked in under your seats there, please. Yeah. You guys are way too easy.
I was going to say.
Anyways, if this does make you a little nervous, I don't know, just close your eyes. That's what I'm going to do. There is really nothing to worry about. These vehicles are built for this. First of all, we have 6-wheel drive, and with the big tires, well, that really helps to hang on to the road. But the big safety feature here for this type of an incline is a device that's called the transmission lockup. Now, when the transmission lockup is engaged, we can't possibly go any faster than we're... Oh, geez, I forgot to put it on. Anyways, we're locked into this low gear, this slow speed. I can pump on the accelerator, nothing happens. So it's the computer pretty much right now that's running the show till we get to the bottom of the hill. These machines are made for us by a Canadian company in Calgary, Alberta called Foremost. Foremost is very well known all around the world. They make lots of different types of big machinery for the mining industry, the oil industry, the logging industry, things like that. Now, in the last 25 years, they've made 23 of these ice explorers, and over those years, we bought 22 of them. The other one was bought by the Americans. They've got it in the Antarctic, and it's used down there to shuttle the people around from the air base to the different installations they got set up there for the ozone depletion studies that are going on, military bases, things like that. These machines, the new ones, this is one of the newest ones on the fleet actually. They cost about $750,000. They've got the hydraulic lift at the back there for the wheelchairs. That means I can take up to 4 wheelchair passengers. And also the turbocharged engines, which I will be talking about a little bit later on. So quite a nifty machine for sure. Anyways, folks, believe it or not, we're already on the glacier. Now, I know you don't see any ice here. There's just a lot more of this rock and gravel. This is called the ice core moraine, and from here you can see that it actually runs the full length of the glacier on both sides. Now, I'll try and explain the whole moraine thing to you. Moraine is a French word. It means debris. And if you look across the valley there, you can see the way a lot of debris comes down from the mountains. This is natural. It's just erosion. And all this rock will come down. It ends up covering the very edge, the side of the glacier. Once the ice is covered, it's protected, so it's going to melt a lot slower. It's not exposed to the wind, the rain, and the sun. In the middle there, the ice is exposed, so it will melt a lot faster. Now, eventually, this ice core moraine that we're on right now will become the new lateral moraine. It'll look just like the one you saw when you were coming up the hill with Bob. Now, that might take another 70, 80 years or so, but eventually it'll just have the one ridge, the one peak. And then, of course, the process will repeat itself on the inside of the glacier as it keeps on getting smaller and smaller. Down below here, you can see there's a bit of water that we hold back. This is actually to rinse off the tires. We don't want to bring all this mud and dirt with us onto the glacier. Otherwise, the ice road would deteriorate very, very quickly. So when we give the tires a quick rinse like this, we're actually helping to minimize our impact on the ice. We get a lot of questions about the tires, comments, jokes, things like that. These are called Terra tires. There's 2 companies that make this type of tire. Michelin and Goodyear both make them. The tires are $5,000 each. They're 5 feet high, they're 3 feet wide, and tire pressure, we only use about 15 pounds. We found over the years that the low tire pressure, the wide grip, gives us much better traction on the slippery surfaces. If you look on the left here at the ice core moraine, you can see some areas where a lot of rock has kind of slid down. The ice is now exposed. Of course, when the ice is exposed, it's going to melt quicker, and you can see by the angle there, it's actually going to melt inwards, and that's how we end up getting the one ridge or the peak shape on the lateral moraine. Remember, I said in 60, 70, 80 years or so, this ice core moraine will be the new lateral moraine. You can also see that the covering on top of the ice is not all that thick. It's just a very thin layer of rock, maybe 5-6 inches at the most, but it is enough to protect and insulate the ice. Anyways, this here is the Athabasca Glacier. This is one of 6 major glaciers that comes, well, I like to say oozing out of the ice field, and I'll explain that in just a minute. The ice field's located on the left there in the 11 o'clock position. That's what we call the head wall. You're going to get a really good view of that as soon as we get out of the machine. At the very top of the head wall on the right-hand side there, it looks like a great big snowdrift coming in towards the middle. Well, that there is the very edge of the ice field itself. Now the ice field, we never really get to see it. It's about 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters above sea level. We're kind of down here, we're looking up at an angle. All we can see is just the edge of it, or the rim. Now if you were to take an airplane ride up there on a nice day, all you'd see really is just a huge wide open area of ice and snow. It's quite a large area. It covers about 110 square miles. That's 325 square kilometers. That means that the city of Vancouver would fit up there very easily. There'd be lots of room to spare. Or if you've ever been to New York, they say that Central Park will fit on top of the ice field 91 times. Now the ice field, if you did see it from up above, I guess you could say it sort of resembles a great big basket. It's surrounded by 22 mountain peaks. 11 of those peaks are amongst the very tallest peaks in the Canadian Rockies. What happens now is the prevailing winds, that's our, well, the Pacific westerlies, they'll come rolling through here, and usually they're carrying a lot of moisture with them from the Pacific Ocean. Well, they're going to hit those high peaks. Those systems are then forced to rise, and because of the altitude, they're going to drop all the moisture that they're carrying. Now down here during the summer months, we get quite a bit of rain. But on the ice field, it's a little bit different story up there. Because it's such a large area, well, you can imagine there's quite a bit of cold air that sits on top of the ice, and of course because of the elevation, that cold air is not going anywhere. So when it rains up there in the summer, the rain will come into contact with the cold air, and of course it'll turn into snow or sleet at the very least. So the ice field will get snow even in the summertime, at least 70% of the time. Up there they get what we call accumulating layers. That means the layers won't melt away in the summertime. They just keep building up year after year, one on top of the other. Now these are pretty big layers of snow, because they'll get up to 30 feet of snow annually on the ice field. That's about 10 meters of snow per year. So these, of course, now are great big, thick, wet, heavy layers of snow. So now you've got all this weight that's pushing down, and what's happening is that weight is actually compressing the layers of snow underneath from the past, squeezes all the air out of it, and that's what turns it into glacial ice. So glacial ice now is actually a little bit different than the ice you make at home in your freezer. At home, when we make ice, we're using water and cold temperature. This ice here is made with snow and compression, so there is a difference. One of the biggest differences, of course, is the density of the ice. If you were to take a handful of glacial ice chips, put them in a container of water, throw in some ice cubes, you'd see that the ice cubes would actually melt a lot faster than the glacial ice. It takes longer for the glacial ice to dissolve because of this density. Now all that weight up there, it's doing something else besides turning snow into ice. You've got so much pressure pushing down that at the bottom, the ice is literally being squeezed out of the sides of the ice field. So it begins to fill in the mountain peaks in between, or the valleys in between the mountain peaks that surround it. So you've got all that pressure pushing down, the snow is being compressed at the bottom, the ice is dripping out or oozing out of the sides of the ice field.